So today I finally get the chance to do the video that I've been waiting to do for the past couple of weeks, but I have never got a chance to do so because I was relatively busy doing other videos and doing previews and review. And that of course is comparing the New England Revolution 2021 season to the LAFC 2019 season. So, as you guys know, the LAFC 2019 season is going to be a season that we'll remember as a team that has the most ever point in MLS history in the regular season with 72 points. And knowing the fact that New England is heading to that stretch where as they are going to head to their last 5 games, it looked like New England could potentially break that record. And in fact, right now in terms of points per game total, the Rams actually had more points per game total than where LAFC was when they were heading into the last 5 game of the season. And also I'll kind of talk about New England and look at their last 5 game season and to see whether or not if they can actually do it and break the 72 point mark that LAFC basically set in 2019. Now, let's take a look at the LAFC 2019 season. And what's interesting about their season back in 2019 is that they actually barely cleared the mark that the Red Bulls set the previous year, where the Red Bulls had 71 points in terms of the most points in the regular season in MLS history. Though when you look at this team and look at by the time I think when they got to like August and heading into September, a lot of people thought that this team can hit the 80 point mark because they really did not had a bit of a skid and bit of a rough patch that they hit until they were heading into the final months of the season. And if it wasn't for that bad final months of the season, this team could have got maybe around the 80 point mark. But we start off in March 3rd, where they start with a 2-1 win against Sporting KC on opening night. I remember that was the game where they score a last-minute winner to win 2-1 against SKC to grab their first 3 points. Then they follow up by an impressive 4-1 win against the Portland Timbers before drawing 2-2 against NYCFC to reach their point total to 7 points. Then they come back at home and win 2-1 against RSL to increase their points total to 10 points. And then they had probably one of the more impressive victory that they had this season, and probably you could argue the most impressive road win that any team had back in that season by winning 5-0 against the San Jose Earthquakes. And that was also a game that when Carlos Vela of course scored a hat trick. So at that point they were at 13 points, and throughout throughout 5 games they were already at 13 points, and they're already averaging over 2 points per game. Then they would make it 16 points after winning 4-0 against DC United. Then they win 2-0 against FC Cincinnati, and they of course started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They started the season on a 7-game unbeaten run. Then unfortunately that run kind of came to an end, and I remember this was the game where I think this was kind of one of the biggest upset of the season. Like, I did not expect the Whitecaps was going to be the team that will hand LAFC the first loss of the season, but that's what happened in this game when LAFC for the first time was defeated, and now they're still at 19 points, but they quickly bounced back from that midweek game by winning 4-1 against Seattle. Or actually, not a midweek game, that was a weekend game, but in a midweek game where there was question whether or not if LAFC can bounce back from their first win. Yeah, they did. They only do it against a team that is the Seattle Sounders, which foreshadow a little bit later. The Sounders would eventually get their revenge against LAFC in the Western Conference Final. But we're not going to talk about the playoffs in terms of LAFC because we're just comparing the regular season. But that was a big win to increase their total to 22 points. Before it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, although LAFC will be very frustrated with that because that was a game where the Sounders, I think they went down to 9 men in that game and somehow were able to get a draw against a powerful LAFC team. Then it was a 0-0 draw between between LAFC and the Chicago Fire, and certainly one of the more disappointing home game that LAFC suffered because the Fire wasn't really a good team, and it was kind of inexplicably that they drew 0-0 at home, and their tally stays at 24 points. But they were able to bounce back by winning 3-0 against the Crew on the road to increase their tally to 27 points. Then it was at 30 points when they were able to win 2-0 against FC Dallas. But when they did go to Frisco to play against FC Dallas at Toyota Park, they did held to a 1-1 draw, and their tally is now at 31 points. But they were then able to return home by winning 4-2 against Montreal to make the tally to 34 points. And then it was a 3-2 win against the Timbers, and keep in mind this was the game when the Timbers were playing their first ever home game in a newly renovated Providence Park, and they kind of spoiled that party by getting all 3 points. Though in the very next game against the Rapids, they did lose 1-0 in that game. And keep in mind, this Rapids team is not like the Rapids team of this season, where it was not a good team. It was kind of a little bit surprised how LAFC dropped points in terms of that. But then the following week, they were able to win 3-1 against Sporting KC to make it 40 points. Then they probably have the most impressive victory at home by winning 6-1 against the Vancouver Whitecaps to make it 43 points. Then it was a 3-1 win against the Houston Dynamo at 46 points. They did lose in El Tráfico against the Galaxy at 46 points, but then the following week they were able to win 4-3 in that incredible thriller against Atlanta United at 49 points. Then they were able to win 2-0 against New England on the road to increase their tally to 52 points. Then they were able to win 4-2 against the Red Bulls to increase their tally to 55 points. Then LAFC, of course, having a 2-0 road win against RSL to make it 58 points before they were able to win 4-0 against the San Jose Earthquakes to make it at 61 points. So during this stretch, like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. During this 10-game stretch that LAFC has, they pretty much won 8 out of their 9. Well, it's actually a 9-game stretch, but they actually won 8 out of their 9 games. And this is also where not only the fact that there was a lot of people thinking that, you know, LAFC is basically on another planet and they look like they're just absolutely unstoppable right now, but many people think that, yeah, they can definitely reach the 80-point mark. Like, they have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 games left by the time they reach the 61-point mark. And, you know, as long as if they can pretty much win 6 out of their 8 games, well, maybe 7 out of the 8 games, which at that time it seems kind of impossible, but with the way how LAFC was just rolling on everybody, that definitely seemed possible that they could actually get to the 80-point mark. But this is when I talked about earlier where they really started to hit a rough patch, because it all started with them drawing 3-3 against the Galaxy and another El Tráfico to now get their total to 62 points. But then they lost 2-0 against Minnesota at home and suffered their first and I believe only loss that they had this season. Then it was a 2-2 draw between them and Orlando City to make it 63 points before it was another 1-1 draw to make it 64 points. And then they drew 1-1 against Toronto to make it 65 points. And in basically, 5 games, they basically picked up just 4 points in the 5 games. And this is where there was a lot of people kind of questioning, is this like what we saw from Atlanta United back in 2018, where, you know, I think back in this season, I also kind of make some comparison between LAFC and Atlanta from last season, because with the way that both of these teams and the points total and the season of how they gone, which were very similar, I thought it was happening again where LAFC was kind of stuttering heading into the playoffs and maybe be a little bit complacent. But then after that, they were able to win 3-1 against Houston to make it 68 points. But then they did drew 1-1 against Minnesota to get to their tally at 69 points. And then on the final day of the season, they were able to break that mark to make it by winning 3-1 against the Colorado Rapids to make their points total to 72 points. But like I said, you know, it looked like LAFC not only was going to break the all-time MLS record for points total, but many people thought that they were going to smash it. But the reality is, you know, because of that rough patch that they had in September, they kind of never really kind of smashed the record. I mean, they did achieve the record but only by one marginal point. Now, when you look at New England and in terms of the season that they currently have, what's interesting about the Revs season is that they actually did not get off to a good start to the season. Well, I take that back. They did kind of got off to a good start, because I think even when they only got like 8 points in their first 5 games, it was still like near the top of the Eastern Conference, because, you know, the East, Seems like there was a lot of parity earlier in the season, and not a lot. The team were getting a lot of points on a consistent basis. But they start the season with a 2-2 draw against Chicago before winning 1-0 against DC United. They did win 2-1 against Atlanta, but then lose 2-0 to Nashville, and then drew 1-1 against the Union to make it at 8 points. But then this is when they kind of started going on a 6-game winning streak, and this is kind of started where they kind of tried to pull away from the pack a little bit. The 6-game winning streak all started with a 1-0 win against Columbus in the rematch of the Eastern Conference Final before winning 3-1 against the New York Red Bulls to increase their total to 14 points. Then they of course won 1-0 on the road against FC Cincinnati to make it 17 points. Then they were able to win 3-2 against NYCFC on the road to make it 20 points. And then they also won by that same score line against the other New York team, the New York Red Bulls, to make it 23 points. But that 6-game winning streak did finally came to an end in the hands of FC Dallas, where they lost 2-1 against them on the road. And this is also kind of when, once again, New England started to sputter a little bit, because I think after this game, they kind of went through 4 games where they only were able to grab 4 points and were only averaging like 1 point piece, because the next game they drew 2-2 against Columbus on the road before losing to last place Toronto 3-2 at home, which was considered probably one of the more disappointing results that they had this season. Then they did finally win 1-0 against Atlanta, and by the way, this is also when not only the rough patch was finally over, but this is when New England really started to separate from the rest of the Eastern Conference, and they just go on this incredible bowl run, where I think there was at one point this season where they basically won like 9 out of their 10 game. Because the next game they follow up by probably the most impressive road wins this season in their standards, and really in the league, by winning 5-0 on the road against Miami. Then winning 2-1 at home against Montreal to make it 33 points. Then winning 3-2 on the road against the Red Bulls to make it 36 points. They did have that frustrating 0-0 draw against Nashville to make it 37 points, but they bounced back quickly in the next game by winning 2-1 against Philly to make it 40 points. Winning 2-1 on the road against Toronto to make it 43 points. Winning 3-2 against DC to make it 46 points. And then winning 4-1 against FC Cincinnati to make it 49 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, they went through a stretch. Oh, actually 10, of course, where they basically not only went on a 10-game unbeaten streak, but 9 out of the 10 games that they have were all comes to win. And by this time they had like what I think it was like a 15-point gap over the Eastern Conference. And kind of this is where I said, barring any crazy collapse that New England has, there's no way they're not going to be finishing first in the Eastern Conference. Now, they did lose 2-1 against NYCFC on the road, but that was just a minor hiccup, because they were able to fall up and bounce back by winning 1-0 against the Unions to increase their tally to 52 points. Then it would be 55 points after they got revenge against NYCFC at home by winning 2-1. Then it was a 1-1 draw between them and Columbus to make it 56 points. Oh, that was the game that, you know, Eloy Rome basically was just determined not to be beaten more than once, even if he was basically playing with one leg. Then they were able to win 3-2 on the road against Chicago to make it 59 points before winning 2-1 against Orlando City to make it 62 points. And then they follow up by one of the more impressive victory this season by winning 4-1 against Montreal to make their tally to 65 points. And that's where they sit right now, where with 5 games left, they, in terms of the points per game total that they have, they are definitely going to surpass the 72-point mark that LAFC had, and I believe they're on verge of potentially getting 75 points. Now, when you look at the rest of the season, I mean, they technically still could get to the 80-point mark, but obviously if they are going to get the 80-point mark, they have to pretty much win every single game. And there's definitely some game when you look at ahead of the New England schedule where maybe they're probably not going to get a win. I mean, the next game against Chicago, I expect that should be a win, because the Fire seems like they pretty much just checked out. But then going on the road against DC, and knowing how hot DC has been, that is definitely not going to be easy. Then going on the road against Orlando, and you know, Orlando might be a little bit desperate heading into that game, so that's not going to be easy. At home against the Rapids, and you know, the Rapids is a tough opponent, but it seems like this season the Rapids, when they play on the road, they tends to not have a good good record in terms of playing against tough teams. So you would fancy New England should win that. And then of course on decision day against Inter Miami, which I think by that time Miami probably would have been out of the players. That should also be easily 3 points for them. And again, if I do the math, I think they're gonna win this. This is probably gonna be a draw. The game against Orlando, I would say that could potentially be a draw. Actually, I take that back. They probably could lose the game against DC. They probably could draw against Orlando City. They could definitely beat Colorado, and that could be the point where they could actually, let's see. So this would be at 68, and then I said this is a loss, so they stay at 68. Then I said they're gonna draw against Orlando would be 69. So against Colorado, they can tie the record here that LAFC set at 72 points. And it's ironic the fact that, LAFC set the record against Colorado and New England has a chance to basically tie the record against the same team at home. But the very next game against Miami, I think that's when they're going to break the record and going to hit that 75-point mark, which is where as I said, they are going. That's where they're averaging right now. But, it's also going to be interesting to see whether or not, if Bruce Arena, I'm assuming Bruce Arena is going to care about this record. He definitely wants to not only win New England their first ever MLS Cup, but he definitely wants that achievement of having this team of getting the most point ever in the regular season. And yeah, I think there could be a chance where even if he clinch everything, there's no way he's going to rest some of his guys. He's just going to kind of keep going. And knowing the fact that when you look at the remaining part of the schedule, and because New England has played by far the most amount of games that anybody has played, when you look at the schedule that they're going to have for the rest of the season, it's not really that tight. Like the next game that they have, yes, it's going to be on an international break, but after that, they're not going to be playing for another 2 weeks before they do have a seven game in 3 days kind of situation, where in the middle they are kind of, well, there's going to be 2 road games before they have a home game at home. But then after that, they have decision day, and at least, I know for a lot of the other MLS team, especially with the one that are not playing on international day, there's still a lot of them that might have to play like 3 games in 7 days in a couple more times as we head into the final month of the season. So again, for New England, because they play so much games, rest should not be an issue, and that they should be getting a more lightly kind of schedule compared to other teams, which is why it's kind of important, because when you have a tight schedule, maybe that I could see that Bruce Arena might be reluctant to kind of bring his starters. But when you have a kind of schedule that is more so kind of light, and it's not like you're playing a game every 3 days, except for that stretch between October 20th to October 27th. They should be fine in terms of the fact that they should be putting their strongest squad in. I feel like anytime when New England puts out their strongest squad, nobody can really match them. Like that's kind of the reality of it. And again, that's why I think they do have a really good shot in terms of breaking the record that LAFC on back in 2019. But let me know in the comments below, do you agree on that? And let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and also your prediction in terms of the last 5 games that New England has. Do you think that New England is going to reach that record? And if they are going to reach that record, when exactly is going to do so? My answer is still going to be on the last day of the season, but they can keep going on this incredible run that they seem to be on, and always find ways to win games. They could get to that 72-point mark as soon as the game when they play against Orlando City on the road. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.